Hi there, it is time for seed starting class number 2. So let me show you what we're getting started with. Hang on, let me get the camera turned around. All right, so the first thing when you're going to start seeds is you've got to get your seed starting mix ready. What we've got here is Espoma seed starting mix. I like that brand. It is organic. It only has the basic stuff in it that you need. There's no extra things or artificial things or chemical things. It does not have any fertilizer in there, which is what we want. We want to be very gentle with our baby seedlings. We want them to get germinated and started without trying to take up a bunch of stuff. Now, that said, we have added a couple things this time to our seed starting mix. One thing we added was just a little bit of a natural type, organic type fertilizer from a company called M.I. Gardner, Trifecta Plus. We just put in a little bit, like what would fit, in the palm of my hand, because we're getting ready to start peppers. And peppers are something that are gonna need some nutrition fairly quickly after they get going. So we added just a little bit of this gentle fertilizer to this big batch of mix. We also are going to try again to head off fungus gnats. So we have added a handful of this substance called Natrol. Now I will warn you, this can be pretty expensive. It is a organic, natural type product. It is not a chemical. It's Bacillus thuringiensis. And if you want to get this, if you go to someplace like Amazon, usually all I have found on Amazon is like I think a 5-pound container, and it's $500, $600. So not something I can afford. But I found there were a couple of other places that are like companies that sell to people who do growing of things, like as their business, that I could get a 1-pound container. And this, I can't remember, but I think it was 50 something, maybe $60. And I decided with as many fungus gnats as I had last year, we were going to try this again. So I have tried using this product in the past. I found a place a couple years ago that I could get a little container. And the way you typically are told to use this is to mix it with some water and then water your seedlings. And what it does is it goes into the soil mix and it kills the fungus larva. Well, somebody that I really respect, Laura from Garden Answer, check out her YouTube. She's fantastic. I've learned a lot from her. She has tried this year sprinkling some in directly to the mix. And I think that's just extremely logical. Let's just put some mix in there to begin with. And she has reported that seems to be doing has been really helpful in she's not seeing fungus gnats. So that's one thing we're going to do. Another thing is once we get things planted, we will be adding the little sticky traps in the little cell trays, so that in case we have a fungus gnat adult, that fungus gnat will hopefully get caught on that little sticky trap and die before it has a chance to have any fun in the dirt and make some babies. A third thing we're doing is I have a big fan that is blowing on the seedlings once they come up. That helps, one, them to get stronger, and two, it will help hopefully discourage fungus gnats from landing. So our mix here is just about ready. You can see if we take a handful of it and pick it up, it kind of holds together, but it doesn't drip. So that's basically exactly what we want. So now we're going to get ready to start putting this in our seed trays and planting our seeds, and we'll be back to show you how that looks. We're ready to plant, and when you're planting your seedlings, your seeds, you want to have something that's going to give them enough room to grow, and but not so big that they are swimming. There is a little bit of an art to not starting things in too big of a container. It will actually slow down their growth. So this is I have found to be a great size. There's 6 little cells, and when you put them in a 10-20 tray, you can fit 6 of these per tray. And these are really nice to put your seedlings in for 2 reasons. When I water, if a little water seeps down through, this doesn't have any holes, so it's not going to go anywhere and get all over everything. The other thing, it keeps things stable. They're not flopping over, as opposed to there are shallow trays that you can get. I like those for later in the spring when I'm putting things outside and maybe having to bring them in back and forth, but they're in bigger containers. But the problem with those, because they have shallower sides, things can sometimes tip over. So I don't tend to use those for seed starting unless I run out of these. But so you get your potting mix in there, and then you want to initially put some potting mix in and then kind of shake it around and tap it down. You don't want any air pockets, because air pockets are not something you want a baby seedling that's just getting started. What'll happen is those roots will do what's called air pruning, which means they'll stop growing. And so you don't want that on a baby plant that's just getting started. There are situations where some people will want the roots to stop growing out. So that's why some people use things like soil blocking. If you want to check that out, Google it. Lots of people have lots of videos about soil blocking. It's where you don't have a container. You just make literally little blocks of the soil. So now what you want to do before you've got your dirt in there, you want to tamp it down with your finger a little bit to make sure there's no air pockets. You don't want to tamp it down so hard that you have a brick, but you don't want it to collapse on you. So you want to give it a little bit of pressure, and you can see these have a little too much air in them. So we're gonna give them a good little tap and then add a little more soil. Now the other thing you want to look at as you're getting ready to get started is what depth do your seeds need to be at. So here in this one, we're going to start some green onions and some peppers. And so you want to pay attention. Green onions need to be at a 1/4 inch. Peppers just so happen to also be a 1/4 inch. One thing to think about, and we'll make it be okay with this. Different types of plants germinate at different speeds. So with peppers, something that I like to do that helps them get going a little faster and better is we're gonna put these on a heat mat. And that's gonna add some gentle bottom heat underneath this. We're gonna put what kind of looks like a heating pad, but it's for plants. We'll put it underneath here. That heat will kind of radiate up and help the peppers to get going a little faster. It will also be fine for onions, or else we wouldn't be putting onions in the same tray. But the onions may germinate a little faster than the peppers. So we'll have to watch and see how that goes. Onions, we will leave in these trays until it's time to plant them out. They go out in the garden really early. They can take the cold. So they'll go out in early spring in like March. The peppers will have to be moved up into bigger pots at some point, maybe around the same time. So that would be nice if it works out that way. They may have to be moved up a little faster. It's just going to depend. But normally, depending on how much stuff you're growing, you want to be thoughtful about putting different kinds of things in the same tray, because if they get started at a much different pace, one of the things that you do is you add what's called a humidity dome. At first, I like to use to keep the moisture consistent, and you don't have to keep watering them or misting them. Is if the onions come up, once things come up, you don't really want to be keeping the humidity dome on there. It'll be too humid, which could lead to something called damping off, which is a fungus that happens down at the base of the plant at the soil level. And it looks like somebody came along, you have these cute little seedlings, and all of a sudden, boop, they just got pinched off. It's not that they got pinched off. It's not that a bug got to them. It is that they got a fungus at soil level because it was too damp. So you want to take your humidity dome off once they come up so that isn't as likely to happen. So what you can see here, what we're doing is these needed to be planted at a 1/4 inch. So instead of filling it all the way to the top, we left it a little bit below at about a level that we could then add soil on top to get it to that 1/4 inch depth. That's one way. Another option is you can fill them all the way to the top and then take something like a skinny marker and poke a little hole at the depth that you need, and then plop your seeds in that little hole. That also sometimes can be helpful to get your seeds spaced if you're putting more than one seed in a container. All right, we'll be back in a little bit. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer of something called vermiculite. This is a volcanic rock that's been pulverized, and what it does is it adds a layer of protection across the top. It kind of looks like sawdust, and what we want to do is, this is a little not enough, so we'll put more on this one, but to give you a picture, like to compare, you want to cover the entire surface so that it looks like there's a layer of sawdust on the top of all your seed cells. And what this is going to do is a couple things. It's going to maintain help the moisture level maintain within the cell, because that's really important. You need your seeds to stay damp until they've completely germinated and pushed through. Otherwise, if they dry out or if they get too dry, that seed shell, the outer coating on the seed will harden up, close up, and you will not get a germinated plant. So you want a little layer, kind of like these, of the vermiculite. And what that does, like I said, is it maintains your moisture level, keeps those seeds soft. It also, in theory, should discourage or make it harder for fungus gnats to land on here and lay eggs. Now, we're trying multiple ways of discouraging fungus gnats this year. But that is another thing that, in theory, it could help with. So, vermiculite layered on the top, and let me show you what that looks like. I use Burpee because this, for some reason, is the one product I can't seem to find locally from Espoma. They do have a vermiculite, but I can never find it here locally or at a reasonable price online. To compare, so vermiculite I use on the top. Another product that gets used in your soil mixture is perlite. And this is something that improves heavy soils. So it's also a volcanic rock that's been pulverized. Lots of different places you can get this. There are different grades as far as coarse, meaning the pieces are bigger. So like the pieces, so this is probably like a medium or coarse size of perlite, all the way down to basically a powder, probably somewhere like a medium. If you're going to make your own potting mix or seed starting mix, you would probably want the medium or fine if you can find it. But if you use the fine, be careful because it's very powdery and you don't want to breathe it in. It is a ground up rock, but also a natural substance, and is used to make your soil fluffier and lighter. It lightens it up. So a couple of things that we do as amendments. These are now ready to get a humidity dome. We will probably also add a couple more things in here, but this is how we get seeds started. That's starting seeds, part 2. Next, we're going to move some things up into bigger pots. That may be on this video. If not, check us out on the channel. There will be another video. Thanks for joining us here in Aunt Susan's garden.